Okay, hi. Yay, we're recording.
Hello. Hi.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So, can you tell everybody who you are and what you're going to do?
So my name's Andrew Gilstrap. I am a bass baritone. I just completed my first year at Minnesota Opera, the resident artist program, where I did actually the role with the aria that I'm going to be singing today. But we'll get to that in a minute. I would be at Des Moines Metro Opera right now, covering Sweeney Todd and doing a little role in Peak Dom, but we're doing our virtual festival instead. But yeah, I did both of my degrees at University of Houston, just kind of doing the young artist thing right now.
That's great. And how old are you again? Did you say?
25.
25, cool. Ah, that's great. So what do you want to sing then?
So I brought in today La Calumnia from Barber of Seville.
Nice, nice. This is always really fun. And it just has so many good places for comedy, right?
Right, yeah. Oh, so the story, if anyone watching is unfamiliar, is essentially Basilio is sort of the secondary bad guy. He's a music teacher, and he has this idea on how to discredit the tenor, Count Almaviva, which is to spread rumors about him. And he's like, oh, we'll turn public opinion against him, and it'll be great. They'll beat him and throw him out of town. And he spends, 5 minutes explaining this plan. And Bartolo, the real antagonist, is just kind of like, no. Which is my favorite part of the show, is when he says no after this big aria.
Yeah. I know, you'd think it would have convinced him, right? But he's not so sure, right? He's like, sounds too complicated. Can we just do something quicker?
Like, let's do something else. Exactly. Just call it.
So the first thing you say is La Calumnia, which of course you say like a lot, and then you go on to describe what this means kind of to you. So calumnia is like a rumor, right? Just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
So cool. So I'll just let you sing it first, because I think that's most fun kind of for everybody. And then we can kind of go through whether you want to go through maybe a couple sections, because there are definitely a lot of words, and for sure some repetition. You can tell me maybe when you're done too, what you find in this aria that is kind of more challenging in terms of like keeping your mind present through the storytelling, where you have found perhaps in the past that your mind, we can tell when our mind dips in and out of true storytelling versus like thinking about our technical singing and stuff like that. So we can kind of work, especially for something that has so much in it, like we can work in sections that you're most interested in, or we can just go through the whole thing too. It's fine. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I'm ready whenever you are, if you want to sing.
Let me start the robot accompanist. Insensibile sottile, leggermente dolcemente, incomincia a sussurrar. Piano, terra, sotto voce, va scorrendo, valzando, nelle orecchie della gente, si introduce destramente, e le teste di cervelli, fa stornire, fa gozziar. Alla bocca fuori uccello, lo schiamazzo va crescendo, prende forza poco a poco, foraggiare in loco, sembra il coro, la tempesta, delle sette la foresta, va fischiando, controllando, e di paro non ce l'ha, alla fin trovo che scoppia si propaga, si radona. c'è un'esplosione, come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone, un tremoto temporale, un tremoto temporale, un borboto generale che fa l'aria rimbombare, un tremoto temporale, un tremoto temporale, un borboto generale che fa l'aria rimbombare. Il mestino calunniato ha finito calpestato. Sotto il pubblico flagello bergando leva crepar. Il mestino calunniato ha finito calpestato. Sotto il pubblico flagello per gran sorte va a crepar. Il mestino calunniato ha finito calpestato. Sotto il pubblico flagello per gran sorte va a crepar. Il mestino calunniato ha finito calpestato. Sotto il pubblico flagello per gran sorte va a crepar. Pubblico flagello per gran sorte va a crepar. Sotto il pubblico flagello per gran sorte va a crepar. Si va a crepar. Si va a crepar.
Hey. That's fantastic. Oh my God. And right now, these times of singing to a track have really made us all appreciate just how valuable it is to be in the same room as the, it's, this track, singing to a track. Can you hear me?
I couldn't for a while, no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, but I agree with at least the first part of what you were saying, which is, yeah, it's I miss being with real people so much.
I know it's really hard to make music, I think, like this with a track, because there's so much nuance that is involved being with somebody right next to you. I was just speaking to my friend John Arita, who's one of my most dear and near pianists, and we're going to create a couple of pieces, and we said, even though we know how the other person breathes already so well, because we've done it together so often, because each piece is constantly living and breathing, that it's hard to make it really, really sync up, no matter how good we are on both sides of the equation, right?
Right.
So
right.
It's been an interesting run thus far for all of us, right? But anyway, that's besides the point. We don't even need the track if we don't want it right now, to be totally honest.
Yeah, we can.
So it's up to you.
Wrap it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Cool. So going back, I'm kind of going to ask you, there are definite sections in here. You tell me first, having gone through it now, where were the sections in which you felt like you were really connected, and which were the sections that you sort of felt yourself kind of going, aside from the obvious, the moments in which it was hard to sync up, which of course threw you, but aside from that, were there other moments in which you sort of found?
Yeah, the part that I feel like I usually check out is also the part that's technically the hardest, and it's not what sounds like it would be. It's the it's just rapid fire, just jumping between my passaggi. So that, yeah, definitely the part where I sort of check out.
Right. Cool. So, okay, so here's another question. Now there's no right answer, obviously, or wrong answer to this. This is something I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to Rossini, because there's always such a sense of buffo, right, comedy in Rossini, right? And we're all, in some ways, I think we don't even realize we learn it that way when we first learn how to sing Rossini or how to be in a Rossini opera. And a lot of times, especially these characters, right, they sort of have a few moments to sort of make an impact. And I think performance tradition is also this sort of very buffo thing. Again, I love it. And I'm also curious what else we can do with it.
Sure, yeah.
Right, just to also so that it's interesting for you, and so that you don't feel obliged to do it in a certain way, but that you are in fact inspired to do it whichever way feels best to you.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm thinking, like, let's start from the beginning. Obviously, the words are really clear in the beginning. So la calunnia è un venticello.
Yeah.
Exactly. È una oretta assai gentile. So now just remember, as you're going through also, the una oretta assai gentile, of course, is one phrase.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So just because that'll help your brain just keep things kind of motoring along.
Totally.
Right? Assai gentile, che insensibile sottile. Right? It's one, that's really one really long phrase. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Leggermente dolcemente. Okay, so let's just do even just that first page, because that's sort of the beginning. It's sort of like the recit in a way before the aria starts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That part actually works fine with the track, so we can do that.
We can pick and choose, it's fine. As we go through these words now, just for the sake of totally tuning in to the language and not feeling obliged to do anything in particular, just tell it like you full on believe the story in full honesty, rather than like you think you're telling a funny story. Do you know what I mean? This is a real thing to you. Like, you as Basilio, you see how rumors work. You've started them before. And so you're really describing almost as if you can see a rumor as if it were a three-dimensional object.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you give it more something you can like hold on to.
Not unlike a respiratory disease passing from person to person.
Yeah, unfortunately, right? Ooh. I mean, life experience teaches us a lot and gives us a lot to draw from.
Mm-hmm.
You can use it. Nobody would know, right? Only you would know. So.
Right, exactly. Back it up like 2 seconds.
In fact, actually, I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use that a little bit. Assai gentile, che insensibile sottile, leggermente dolcemente, incomincia a sussurrar.
Oh, I love this. I was just thinking also for the arc of the whole thing, right? He starts off in this very soft sort of a way, right? Sort of,
yeah.
He's not particularly aggressive or anything, but by the end, he's also, not only is he like aggressive, but he's sort of worked himself up, right? As you know.
Yeah.
And as you did, of course. So I'm thinking, let's go even more on the side of like non-aggressive, even, in a way, like not even so scheming yet. Like, start with this thing where you just remember, like, I'm really good at something. We could start a rumor.
Yeah.
You don't even want to give it away too much in case the walls are listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could start a rumor. It's like, it could be really small, very whatever. And then as you go, you get totally overwhelmed by this fact, and now you're screaming and shouting about starting a rumor that's going to destroy somebody, which is part of the conflict, right? Now you're screaming and shouting about it. It's like, hello, keep it a secret.
Right, yeah.
Right? So start maybe more with like contained in this idea. See if you like that.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Assai gentile, insensibile sottile, leggermente dolcemente, incomincia a sussurrar.
Cool. Do you like that idea? Did that?
I do, yeah. I think of all of them, I liked the middle one the best, where it was sort of in between those two. Still on the soft end, still a bit more of the like more basically more parlando, just more of a conversation instead of like I'm gonna have my big presentation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I love that idea. I think just for the sake of, again, playing around and stretching out, I would see if all the thoughts that you're having in your head going through, tell me for a second in this first page, what are kind of the thoughts that are going through your head as you're saying these lines, so that I can make sure that you're really transmitting those thoughts kind of in your face.
I mean, other than, the English translation of exactly what I'm saying, the thoughts that I'm sort of thinking to try to get my point across are like, oh, it'll be so subtle, it'll be so quiet, it'll like you won't even notice it until it's already too late. That kind of thing, where it's just like, oh, it's so, and it's beautiful. I think he has like a almost, maybe not reverence, but it's hard to say exactly what he feels about rumors, but it's something positive and a little dark.
I like that. Okay. Yeah, cool. And that's very real. So I'm kind of just gonna like keep on pushing you to go to the real side of it, so you don't have to feel like you have to mug anything or like indicate anything. Like you can super trust it, because I love the idea. So keep on going to that place where you're gonna like really just talk to him like it's theater, right? But you just happen to be singing really well at the same time. Right? Do you mind doing it again? Sorry, it's just
not at all.
On page, it's like nothing, but it sort of sets the whole thing up.
Sure. And it's the same thing later.
Yeah.
So why?
Yeah.
Assai gentile e insensibile sottile, leggermente incomincia sussurrar.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so I think by incomincio a sussurrar is he's like, now I'm into it.
Yeah, totally. That was so fun. Like I could see it all on your face. I love it. Okay, so in the next section then, right? Like, so he's kind of getting excited like by this idea.
Yeah.
So like, but he's not full blown yet. So, okay, so tell me now, kind of moving through this next section, how does he feel about this, and how is he kind of like transmitting? Does he what's the word? Betray himself in moments and then come back? How does he do all these things?
I think this part is, since he does the same music twice, more or less meaning the same thing. This is, the start of the instructional section. And so I think this part he keeps very controlled, except maybe, I don't know, I kind of like the idea of on sottovoce, just screaming it, because, I don't know. So I've thought of that before, but I don't usually do it in like an audition or something. But yeah, so this part I think he keeps very like calm, collected, and it builds an intensity so that when it comes back, then he starts, adding in weird notes and getting too excited, and yeah.
And what about all the long pauses in between?
The pauses, I mean, from a practical standpoint, I need them. But yeah, I think he probably would be thinking about the exact right way to say the next part, because he's looking for approval. He's looking for a stamp on the plan.
Okay.
So
cool.
How would this best suit Bartolo as the audience?
Cool. Okay. I like that idea. I think you can definitely use that idea, like he's waiting for maybe a response, right, from Bartolo. And maybe so that you don't have the same sort of thing each time you hear that, you have maybe some that are like just in your mind, so you can visualize it all. Like some of it is you maybe before.
Oh, those pauses. Sorry, I thought you meant like long rests between like.
No, I'm sorry. I wasn't clear enough. That's my fault.
No,
But
no.
pauses. Yeah, what do you think about those too?
Those ones are different. Yeah, that one is, I'm just thinking like, I can see the room, or that's where I'm envisioning it as a three-dimensional object, and I can see it and it growing and spreading and everything. And so it's just kind of, I'm holding a far focus where I just kind of, I'm like, oh, this is really cool.
Cool. Okay, I like that. So pick some of them that are kind of that far focus, but pick some also that maybe can be in direct relationship to perhaps something he was about to say to you and you cut him off, or something also that's more active and more tangible. Just so also you have kind of like direct reasons to say the things, right? Rather than it all being kind of far out, but definitely use that and kind of play with that in and out kind of feeling. Piano, piano, terra, terra. I love that. And then then you go on. Okay, let's do that section. That's really fun.
Sottovoce va scorrendo, va nelle orecchie della gente si introduce destramente e le teste e i cervelli fa stordire, fa gonfiare.
Nice. Do you think of just for the sake of, again, just for the sake of like theater, maybe another way of physicalizing like the end of that phrase?
Yeah.
Just to find just something else, just to have another.
The fa stordire, fa gonfiare, the balloon thing.
Yeah, just have like another idea in your head, because I like that. I do, and I think it works really well. And I just think it's good to have like an extra one in your pocket.
Of course, yeah, in case the director doesn't like it or whatever. Yeah.
Do you say sottovoce later in the piece as well, don't you? Do you? I can't remember.
No.
Is that the one time you say sottovoce?
The one time I say it like that.
That's interesting.
I say sotto a few other times, but.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Great. I'm just curious because I can't remember all the words.
A lot of them.
There are a lot. There's so many. He's very chatty. Okay. Va scorrendo. Va ronzando. Just for technical stuff, like find another way of kind of saying the word when you say it a second time. Just make sure you give it a bit of like direction. Yeah, reason as to why. I always say like there's always a reason as to why we're going to repeat it. It's like maybe when he says va scorrendo, it's like one is like you're just saying it and the other one is you have to convince him of it, things like that, just like different kind of active ideas behind each of those. E le teste dei cervelli. So how do you feel about that section there? E le teste dei cervelli, e le teste, that part.
Yeah, that part is, it's just an extended moment because the one thought takes like an entire page. E le teste dei cervelli, fa stordire e fa gonfiare. That's like 40 seconds of music. So that, but I am just sort of, and that's kind of what the balloon was for, and I usually started earlier too, is to just kind of take up that thought.
So maybe let's play around with the thought in your brain. Anytime you have these sort of repetitions, maybe you can play around with the idea, if you like it, that the first time you say it, you've actually said it in your brain, and the second time you're actually telling him. Do you know what I mean? To give you somewhere to go time. So you're like, e le ceste dei cervelli, e le ceste dei, it's like you're saying it so that you going, okay, I think this is the right idea. So I'm going to tell him this, and then you tell him it, and maybe it'll give you a better like feeling about all the repetition. Do you want to do that part again?
Yes.
Cool.
That should be somewhere.
Yeah, no more.
Oh my god. Okay, here we go. No idea. Sorry. It's all the same.
Do you want to? We can go from piano.
Here we go. I knew I was close because of the timestamp from before.
Rossini, it's basically like 5-1, 5-1, 5-1, 5-1.
Yeah.
The whole show.
Piano, piano, terra, terra, sottovoce, similano, va scorrendo, va scorrendo, va ronzando, va ronzando, e l'orecchie della gente si introduce destramente nelle teste dei cervelli, nelle teste dei cervelli, fa stordire, fa stordire, fa stordire, fa gurgolare. Want to keep going?
Yeah, let's keep on going.
Oh, sure. Alla bocca fuori uscendo, lo schiamazzo va crescendo, prende forza poco a poco, foraggiare in logo, sembra il tuoro la tempesta, viene stende la foresta, battistando pronto l'ombro e ti fa dolor gelare, alla fin tra l'occa e scoppia, si propaga, si raddoppia e produce un'esplosione. Come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone.
Good. So now we're getting into the next section. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. But so this is kind of good. This is like a whole big section kind of in the middle, because then from here on it sort of changes a little bit. It's like the tag of the whole piece, sort of, right? In a way. Okay, so in this middle section, it's like a lot, right? It's like a lot of words. It's a lot of kind of, it feels like it's, sometimes it can feel like it probably hammers away at the words, right? So how do you, at least in those 2 pages, how do you want to create depth and dimension within all of that, right? What are your thoughts with those, with the words? Like which words do you think are kind of most important in his trying to get Bartolo to agree with him? Which ones are the words that are mainly for him and his sort of obsession about this and his sort of like sort of love he has for it? You know what I mean? Like what's for him, what's for Bartolo, stuff like that.
I do think up until Sembra il Tuono, where he starts going bum 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 bum, I think that is all for Bartolo. I think the sottovoce thing, we can, you know, take it or leave it. It works or it doesn't. But I think at that point he really is just word vomiting. He's just very excited and just be like, oh, it'll be like in the forest, there's a storm and all this. And Bartolo probably at that point is kind of like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, it's a wonder why Bartolo maybe hasn't like stopped him. Right. So I'm wondering though if there's, you know, and of course it would be helpful to have a Bartolo, right, reacting to you, and I'll do my best.
Very, very helpful.
I'll do my best to make faces at you. Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Garfield sitting there reacting made everything so easy.
Oh, I love him.
He's so wonderful.
So wonderful. He's so wonderful. We'll keep on channel his spirit in this, you know, and you know, when you know his faces so well, right? So keep on channeling those reactions, because it'll just keep on giving you impetus to keep going forward. I've always thought with this aria, because of the nature of it, it can draw you in, and this is not, this doesn't have to do with the way you're doing it. I'm just thinking in general of the many times I've heard it. It can draw you in, or it can seem sort of endless. And I've always wondered what, you know, what to do in order to keep that thread, that drawing in. And I think maybe part of it, and you can see what you think, is to not blow the top of it too soon, if not barely ever. Like until like colpo di canone, colpo di canone. Then he really kind of lets it go. So even though I know it's tricky and like vocally like maybe to just sort of play a little bit more with the available dynamics that you have in your own voice, also that we can hear, even if we don't understand the Italian perhaps, that we can hear the delineation between phrases and comments to give us a sense of conversation.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to be able to find that spot there, but maybe you want to start, do you want to start just from that second section, the dalla bocca fuori uscendo?
Yeah.
It might be hard, it might be easier to find that, I don't know. Because at least you have the chords. Ba-bum, ba-bum.
think this is the first one. Si introduce destramente le testi cervelli, frastornire, alla bocca fuoriuscendo, lo schiamazzo va crescendo, rende forza poco a poco. Lanciare io quell'uomo, sembra il tuoro la tempesta, che nel sende la foresta, battistando pronto l'ondo, e ti farò roncelare, alla fin trovo che scoppia, si propaga, si raddoppia, e produce un'esplosione. Come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone. Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Do you like that idea, just to kind of keep
I do like that. Yeah.
I love it. I really like it. It felt so, I don't know, there was just something like fun about it too. And then you can really hear also in the music when he starts talking about, you know, when he says like the thunder and all of these things, you know, he's, you know, starting to get in, he's really starting to see this happening.
Right.
Thunder, and he's like, and the lightning, and the this, and then that, until finally it's just like, it's like a lightning strike. And now I think the second one is, maybe see if you like it, more like the first one is like, it's a lightning strike, and the second was like, yeah, it's a light, you know, like it's like more of, like you said, that enjoyment. Right? So maybe the first one is he got overwhelmed to say it's like a lightning strike, and then the next one he's really indulging kind of in it. I don't know, or vice versa, or something, because I feel like then this music that comes up next, un terremoto, un temporale, un terremoto, he's like doing a
yeah, it is kind of like, he's like, woo,
right? He's like
right
a jig, like his body, I think, and the way he's describing things now is like in complete contrast to what he really is doing as a person. He's not being nice, but he's like da, 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 da.
Nice little C major, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So maybe go from that, like, it's a thing, and then like, haha, it's a thing, da, 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 da. You know?
Yeah.
See if that feels good to you. I don't know. We'll see.
So basically go on from where we were, more or less.
Yeah. If you want to do, I don't know if you can even catch into any of that stuff. Do you? I mean, if you feel like
I'll back up some, we'll catch it.
Yeah, it's totally up to you. Just think about that as you do this.
Oh, that was perfect.
I love it. Wow.
128.
Alla bocca fuoriuscendo, lo schiamazzo va crescendo, rende forza poco a poco. Foraggiare io quell'uomo, sembra il tuoro la tempesta, che ne scende la foresta, battistando pronto l'ondo, e ti farò roncelare, alla fin trovo che scoppia, si propaga, si raddoppia, e produce un'esplosione. Come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone, un tremoto temporale.
Sorry. I was holding to get on the D.
Look, it's because of the track, you know. That's
yeah, well, partly the track, partly just trying a new color and not doing it the right way.
That's okay. We're allowed. Totally allowed. That was really good. That was really. Don't give it away too soon. That's the only thing I would say. Don't give it away yet too soon. Like, see the thunder. Be affected by the thunder. Be like, it's the lightning and the things and the crashes and the be still sort of like just write it in just for now, just to see if you like it. And
totally.
The explosione, and then you'd be like, come un colpo di cannone.
Yeah.
And that second was like, yeah, come un colpo di cannone.
Yeah.
Cool. I love it.
Alla bocca fuoriuscendo, lo schiamazzo va crescendo, rende forza poco a poco. Volacciare il loco in oro, sembra il tuono la tempesta che nel segno della foresta va fischiando pronto mondo e ti paro originale alla fin la bocca scoppia, si propaga, si raddoppia e produce un'esplosione come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone.
Yeah, it's holding back on that. That's right on my second passaggio. Let me just try it without the track for a minute.
Cool. You totally don't have to hold back on the first one either. More the stuff that comes right before it. That's all.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's just back it up and try it again then. I think that'll.
Yeah, you can totally, that first Come un colpo di cannone is more the intention behind it. I think that first one is maybe more dark and sinister out of the thunder and the lightning. Come un colpo di cannone. And it can be fine, you just sing full voice. And then the second one is more like, come un colpo di cannone.
Come un colpo di cannone. Yeah.
Alla bocca fuori uscendo, lo schiamazzo va crescendo, prende forza poco a poco. Volacciare il loco in oro, sembra il tuono la tempesta, qui nel segno della foresta, va fischiando pronto mondo e ti paro originale. Alla fin la bocca scoppia, si propaga, si raddoppia e produce un'esplosione. Come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone.
I don't know what's happening. I'm sorry.
So that's totally fine. We don't even have to worry about anything vocally because it's. I mean, we can talk about it if you want to, but we don't have to. What are you on that second one? I think also because it's just hard to catch up, and when you don't feel support from the orchestra that you would normally have, it's hard to sing those things. It's not an easy aria, right, for anybody. So it's. I mean, gosh, and so now you're trying to not only you're trying to sing it well, but like you're trying, which you do, right? But you're trying to catch up with the track. So you're kind of inherently a little.
A little. Let me try it without the track. It's good idea.
Yeah, just have fun with it. Just don't do the whole thing. You don't have to do the whole thing again. Just do the very end of it if you want. The alla fin tra bocca scoppia,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's so good.
Alla fin la bocca scoppia, si propaga, si raddoppia e produce un'esplosione. Come un colpo di cannone, come un colpo di cannone, un tremoto, un temporale, un tumulto generale che fa l'aria rimbombare, un tremoto, un temporale, un tumulto.
Yeah, I'm just driving it. I don't know what's wrong.
No, there's nothing wrong.
I couldn't sing Madamina this morning either. I think I'm just having a rough day.
Oh, listen. I wouldn't worry one bit. You sound fantastic.
Well, thank you.
No, you really do. And look, I had a few students today that I was teaching, and we all go through periods, especially right now, up and down, where things feel good and things don't feel good, and it's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it because you sound great. So, we're all very picky, very, very picky about ourselves, right? We have high standards for ourselves, but out here you sound great. So,
well, thank you.
Don't even worry about it. So, but this is great. So in this whole section, it's this kind of like bouncy, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
Feeling, which is awesome. Just you can, if we don't even have to sing, but let's just talk through kind of the rest of it. This next section, right? So again, I always love using obviously the rhythmic differences between phrase to phrase, how the composer written it, and really kind of relish the differences. So like the more rhythmic differences you have, the more dynamic differences you have, the more variation, right? In general, also the healthier you'll be vocally. So what do you think when he has this next section with all the little dots and brackets and things like that?
Well, at the very first, it's sort of like, he's just had the real climax of the aria, so he's just kind of like calming down for a minute. And then, but at that point, he said the whole plan too. So he's like, meschino, calumniato. He's like, and then it'll work, is basically it. So he's very smug, I think.
I like that. Smug is a good place to go with this, right? Right. Meschino, calumniato. It's sort of like
probably the cut as well.
What's that?
I normally take the cut as well. There was no way to do it in Accompanist, but I took the cut from Sotto il pubblico flagello, sotto il pubblico flagello.
Right. Okay. Well, I love this little section anyway because it sort of sounds. Wait, let me skip to the next page. Sorry. It sort of sounds like he's skipping down the street, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I do that. I do a shimmy often.
I love that. Like, wasn't that such a good idea? I think it was terrific.
Very pleased with yourself.
And then how do you think this next thing, the sotto il pubblico flagello, that's a lot of repetitive notes.
It is.
So I usually say when you have a lot of repetitive notes, like you really have to dig into the words because otherwise, it's exhausting. So how do you go through that mentally too?
That part is I do it as fast as possible to, because to get through it. But I think he's
giving up all our secrets.
I think he's very excited. I think he enjoys the power that he would have over Amaviva in that moment. He would be like, aha, I ruined you. I did it. And I think, I got all these people on board. So I think that's just very proud and a little excited.
Cool. And maybe laughter.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's sort of written like, ha 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 ha,
Yeah. Oh, I definitely do it in the Sotto il pubblico gelo per gran sorte
Totally, absolutely. Yeah, you can pick it many different places, right? And then this course like El meschino cannoniato.
Yeah.
Sotto il pubblico. I love it. Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's such a fun aria. It's such a fun aria. Is there anything else when you think about the aria or that you look at the aria that you have always kind of wanted to try with it or change or habits that you feel like you got into that maybe weren't even your habits that came from? Do you know what I mean?
Just as an answer to your question, not necessarily something we would work on. Yeah, I definitely got used to singing it too slow, and it was not good for vocally or anything. Actually that happened in my Gilstrap audition this year. I just sang it too slow, and I get tired, and then it's bad. But no, the part that I have always felt sort of meh about was the part in the middle that we spent a lot of time on.
Right. Yeah. And it's tricky. It's super tricky. Yeah. I would always say, on a technical level, just in general, I would always say, especially in those places, like you said, to not drive through it, to really find a way to kind of get your character to be the front runner when it comes to those kinds of lines. I mean, obviously we work on technique and everything. We all do forever. But sometimes when we get super worried about the technique, we really like shut off the part of our brain that's connecting to the text in that moment. And sometimes if we really just try super hard to connect to the text in that moment, it solves some things, or basically it solves things mainly because it takes out some of the fear, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that playing around with that section and trying as many different ways will be the best thing, of course, for anybody, for you, for me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really great. It's fun. And it's like I said, it's not an easy art. It's so funny. You're like, let's not do Madamina, let's do this. I was like, okay. I was like, it's not a lot easier, but okay.
It's not a ton easier, but it is. There aren't as many keys. It's just the two.
Right. I hear that. Well, I'm glad to be able to hear you and just sort of talk it out with you and hear your thoughts on it, because it's nice to like hear what you want to do with it and then kind of see you do it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, it's such a
helpful.
Well, good. I'm glad. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I'm glad nonetheless to hear you do it, and
well,
it's fun for me too. I get to think about these characters and in other ways and
that you've only interacted with, not necessarily ever thought about actually portraying.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I know Basilio very well in that sense. right? But oddly enough, I don't know this side of him because he presents a very different side to Rosina all the time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's probably smart enough to see it a little bit, maybe towards the end, but like, I don't think at this point she would necessarily have had that.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't like him. She just gets a sense that she doesn't really love him. She doesn't really want to do her music lessons, you know?
Yeah, it's like how all my students felt about me last year. It's like, yeah, he's fine, sure. I don't want to go to voice lessons though.
Yeah, I hear you.
I taught a bunch of like 7-year-olds.
Oh, sweet. That's amazing. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
they were funny. They didn't want to be there.
Well, I'm glad you wanted to be here.
I did, yes.
Awesome. It was so nice to meet you.
Super nice to meet you too. Have a good rest of your day. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
I will. I'll do my best. You as well.
Thank you.
Well,
All right.
okay.
Talk to you later.
Bye.